Hey guys, welcome. I'm so glad you could join me. This practice is really designed for those times where it feels like we just need some deep, deep rest, where the fatigue feels like it's gone even more than the physical. Sometimes we just get that tired feeling even in our mind, with our emotions, and sometimes even that spirituality feels drained. And while sleep is obviously a wonderful benefit, it's just not always accessible. Right? There's times that we're just not sleeping well for a variety of reasons. So, carving out this time in your day to just get some intentional rest can be really beneficial and support the maybe the not sleeping and the deeper fatigue that we're feeling by giving yourself this time to nourish yourself. So, if you have some regular yoga props, great, but I'm going to use a couple pillows, those work well too. You really don't even need to be on your yoga mat. Anywhere that's comfortable and just gives you some room to lie down in a couple different positions will be great. We're going to start lying down on our stomachs with a little support, and you can choose one pillow or two. Two's going to give you a fair amount of back bend. And so I invite you throughout this practice that it's not necessarily about the biggest stretch or movement or pose, but it's really just about finding what supports you really well. And sometimes that's a really gentle variation of the pose where you can settle in and just relax. So I'm going to start with one pillow, set my other one off to the side. And I'm going to come down onto my chest, legs stretched out long behind, with my arms out in front of the pillow. And you could do a couple things. You could come up onto forearms, that might work. You might just even cross your arms and let your chest rest a little bit more. One other option here, if you have it, if you don't, it's no worries, is just to place a block underneath your forehead. You may or may not have that, that's fine. Sometimes I'll even just take thumbs, let them rest right to the forehead or that little crease of the brow. And it's a really gentle but nourishing way to support your head. Right? So again, worry less about what it looks like. Find the ways that your body feels supported and that you can just really settle into the shape. Good. Once you're there, just take your legs out wide enough so that they can rest. It doesn't have to be crazy wide, just a little space so that there's no effort to hold them together. And your heels might even fall in or out. And then just let the weight of your legs go. And sometimes it takes a few moments to settle in. So if you need to wiggle around at first, find the place that feels most comfortable, do that. We'll be here for a little bit of time. And so setting up what feels supportive can really let you enjoy the time that we're here. And then you can let your chest soften down onto that support. Right, and if it feels any strain in the low back from the back bend, you could take the pillow out and just come to lie all the way down. And let your arms even get heavy. And so if you're using this little strategy of thumbs to hold your head, just let the weight of the head go. Right? Trust that the structure of your hands will support it. And then let your attention start to come to your breath. And see if you can just start by noticing without having to change anything. One of the things I love about a restorative practice is we're really taking away any of the effort. And that may even include the effort with your breath. So what I invite you to try here is just letting your belly get softer. And then as the belly softens, you may find that there's just a little bit more room for the breath to move there without a lot of effort. And just notice the pace of your breath. And sometimes we get fatigued from doing too much, right? From being on the go, trying to do all the things. And sometimes it feels like the fatigue starts to compound when we're too tired to do anything. Right? So it starts with just a little tired, but then it's harder to move and get blood flow going. And so our energy feels like it just gets sapped. Right? So giving yourself this time to rest in a really intentional way can sometimes shift that. Right? We're nourishing the body with supported rest, with fullness of breath. And you may even take a moment here and just set an intention for the practice. Right? What could a little bit more energy, a little less fatigue feel like for you? And just take these last few moments of the pose in silence. See if you can just let the attention rest to your breath so that if other thoughts come in, that can be your anchor to come back to. Just a couple more breaths there. And then you can release your arms, come all the way down, and just let your hips wiggle a little side to side. Find a little release. And then we're going to set up for a supported child's pose. So you can come to tabletop, press to hands and knees. Couple options here. For some of us, a little support behind the knees is really helpful, especially if they just don't love that deeper bend. So you could scoot a pillow, a blanket works well here too if you have that. And you want to take your knees a little wider and your big toes together. And then you would settle your hips back towards your heels, but you have that support behind your knees and underneath your hips. And then maybe your other pillow comes long ways down your belly. You could stack both pillows under your belly if it feels like you have the room for that or enough props or support. If at any point you want more props, more support, you can just hit pause, get what you need. And then once you're settled in, just allow your body to start to soften into this shape. Sometimes it even helps just to do a little scan from head to toes and see if anything feels like it's holding on to that bit of tension. We're not even aware of it until we really consciously tune in. You can turn your head to one side or the other if that feels like a good place for it to land. If you find any of those spots that feel like they're just hanging on a little bit more, if you can just bring a little attention there for a few moments. Give the body permission to settle into rest. This isn't an always easy thing for us to do, to give ourselves permission to carve out that time for really intentional rest. But when we do that, we actually can just really help ourselves to restore our bodies, but our minds, our emotions, so that we feel less reactive, more resilient. I know for me, sometimes when I'm feeling that weariness, there's the desire to I need a whole week of rest, of doing nothing, of vacation, of shutting it all down. And while that's lovely, it may not always be possible. And we can actually get so many benefits from the consistent practice, even more so than just taking the week and then coming back to our regular routine. Right? What would 20 or 30 minutes of consistent restorative time a few days a week feel like? How could that help to shift the fatigue? In that first pose, we really created some softness, some allowing of the breath into the belly. See if here now you can just let the back body get a little softer. You're not doing anything with the breath except creating room and space for it to move. And then a few more moments of just quiet with your breath. Again, let that be the anchor. Right? Other thoughts tend to creep in, right? Whether it's worries or the to-do list. Recognize that. And then just invite your attention back to the softness of your breath. And just take a couple more breaths here. And then move slowly, there's no hurry. Let yourself slide forward. You can set your props off to the side. If it's helpful for your knees to have just a little bit of movement, sometimes that is nice after those deeper folds. You could stretch one leg out at a time behind you and just rock back and forth a little bit on your toes, on the balls of your feet. Open up knees and ankles after that long hold. Just go really slow, really gently. We're trying to stay within that supported, restful place. Okay, and then you can grab, I'm going to use 2 pillows for this. Again, if that ends up feeling like a lot, you can always take one out and see what would work best. Sometimes for me, a little bit more support here is helpful. And then you're going to scoot your left hip just up against the end of the pillows, and you can bend your legs, see what feels most comfortable there. We're going to set up for a twist here. So you can take a hand on either side of that stack of support, and then just let your belly, your chest come to rest all the way down. A couple options here for your head as well. You can look in the same direction as your knees. That might be a little softer for your neck. If you have a fair amount of range of motion and you want to look back behind you, again, I would just invite you to focus less on trying to get the big stretch and the movement, and instead prioritize the place that feels really supported. Right? Restorative practices are less about the physical body getting open, but more about giving ourselves that support so that we can really rest. And sometimes it's something we don't get enough of or give ourselves enough of. Right? Building those support systems that can really help us to get the rest we need, to be able to just settle in sometimes and let go. And so as you carve out those little times here in your practice, how might that spill over into other aspects? And how could giving ourselves that support maybe help to prevent some of the fatigue or the overwhelm? Right? There are times those things are unavoidable. And there are times we know we can set up a little bit more of a scaffolding or a safety net. That would be helpful. And just notice what your breath is doing here. Sometimes with twists, we get that bit of compression in the belly. And so just making sure there's enough room for the breath. Right? If that means backing out of the twist a little bit, you can do that. I just don't want there to have to be a lot of effort for the breath to move freely and fully. Sometimes it's just those moments of bringing attention to our breath. allowing it to be full, as those can be so nourishing. And so, like we've been doing, see if you can just take these moments in silence and let the attention just stay with your breath. If other thoughts come in, be gentle, that happens. And just invite them back sweetly. Attention to breath. And just take another breath. Again, go slowly and to ease your way out. And then just sit up tall for a moment. Again, not a lot of effort, just more with the intention of letting things settle back to neutral, to the midline after the twist before we go to the other side. A couple full breaths might feel good. And you can either just turn your hip, right, your right hip to the side on the pillows. I'm just going to move my pillows to the other side. So I don't like to have my back to it. It's whatever works better for you. So right hip up against the pillows. And you can just kind of stack your legs or let them come at angles, see what feels best. Turn one hand on either side of your pillows. Sometimes you can even just gently, really gently press into your right hand. Just lets your body twist. And then with that twist, fold forward. See what feels best for your neck on this side. And so if that's looking in the same direction as your knees or looking back, it might be different side to side. Sometimes we have different range of motion in the neck side to side. Whatever feels right here, don't overthink it. And then just take a couple breaths to really let the weight of your body settle in. And so that you're feeling the support. And then letting your body really surrender into that fully. And like we did on the first side, just check to see that there's enough room for breath, right? That the twist isn't so deep that it feels straining at all to breathe. Softening of the breath can really help to activate that parasympathetic nervous system, right? Our rest and digest mode. And this is a place where healing, where that deep rest really happens. Right? When we're working a little bit more in fight or flight, which happens, it's hard for the body to really restore. And so we're just asking the nervous system to make that shift. A place where we can rest and heal, right at that deep, deep level. And then in the quiet of the pose, let your attention rest there. And notice thoughts go somewhere else. That's okay. Let's invite that attention back. And just take a couple more breaths. Move slowly. Use your hands for support. Help yourself all the way back up. And then do the same. Take whatever seat feels comfortable. And just take a couple breaths. And then we're going to set up for one more supported pose. Again, I'm going to use 2 pillows. That might feel like a lot. You can play with it, see what works for you. And so you can just turn now so your low back is right up against the pillows. And then you're going to lie back. Come all the way down to rest there. So if you do this pose often, one of the options is butterfly with the legs, the soles of your feet together, knees out wide. And if that's a really comfortable position for you, like no strain, minimal sensation, great. Right? For a lot of us, that's not the case, right? This is a big hip opener with the butterfly knees. So you may want to do the opposite. Keep your knees bent, but take your feet out a little wider and let your knees rest together. Right? This one's actually called constructive rest pose, so it's right in the name. And then you can bring your arms out again wherever they're comfortable. Right? So we're looking less again for that big stretch of taking the arms out wide, but maybe there's a little bit more supported down by your side. Maybe it even feels good to have your hands to your belly. Sometimes that physical reminder of attention to breath can be helpful. But just let it be about what's most helpful for you. And if they're not already, you can let eyes close. Or just let your gaze get heavy. And as you close your eyes, can you soften your jaw? One of the places where we tend to hide that tension. You may even let your lips part and release your tongue from the roof of your mouth. Feel the weight of your head drop back. And then allow your shoulders to soften back into the support. Where do you notice your breath going here? Restorative practices can be a great way to be proactive about giving our bodies, our minds, our emotions the rest that they need. So yes, it's so good to do when you need it in the moment. And I invite you to think about how practices like this could be weaved in, right, on a regular basis to help prevent the fatigue. And that might not even be a half an hour. That might be 10 minutes every day. It's one or two poses. What works for you and what would the benefits be? And with your attention to your breath, I'm going to leave you here in this pose. If you are done, you can gently roll to your side and press up. And if you have more time, I invite you to stay. Right? That might be another minute, that might be another 5 minutes. And just feel the benefits of the support and the deep, deep breath.